All right, so welcome to Mendy Talks. This will be the first episode of hopefully many to come. This will be a podcast. If you don't know me, my name's David Mendoza. I started Mendy Imports, and I feel like I have a lot to say that I sometimes don't get enough. It's gonna sound selfish, but enough screen time where I can say it because I put these videos out there for people to see. And I just sometimes feel like I miss some things. And I've always kind of wanted to do a podcast, but I never had the balls to do it, I guess you could say. So here we are. And it's awkward. Like, I remember when I first started doing YouTube videos, I thought it was like the weirdest thing ever. And here we are now. And the same feelings that I had for YouTube videos, I'm having now for making a podcast, which is kind of wild because I put myself behind a camera all the time, and that wasn't what I wanted to do initially. But here we are. If you are a subscriber to Mendy Imports, shout out to you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. If you're not, if you're tuning in for the first time, just make sure you go and check out MendyImports.com, which is my website. You can also check out Mendy Imports on Instagram and then on Facebook and also on YouTube. And then that'll kind of give you a general idea. But for starters, let's break it down. So back in, I think it was 2022, well, a long time ago, I saw these K trucks rolling around and I was like, I want one of these things. And so I told my wife, hey, I'm going to make it a priority to get one of these trucks in the near future. And then the time came and I was able to find one stateside. So I got one stateside, and then I was like, so this is probably what I'm going to do with most of my episodes, but let's back it up. I'm a person that if I want something, I'll go out and get it, or I'll learn how to do it and I'll make it happen. And so when, given the opportunity in life happens, these things where I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's just go for it. I literally go for it. And I try and research as much as possible to see what'll work out for me, what does happen or what doesn't happen. I think in a future episode, we'll talk about what we had in the past, which was a school bus that we turned into a schoolie, and we lived in it full time for about a year. But another episode for that. So yeah, I mean, I started researching and I said, I want to import one of these. And so I ended up at a dealership here in Connecticut, and I said, let me get, just sit down in one just so I get a general idea as to what it is that I'm looking at and which one it is that I want. So I went to Ross Motors. We went to JDM Imports in Connecticut. And they had a couple, but they didn't have a ton. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, this doesn't represent me. And being the person that I am, if I set my mind to it, I want to just get it done. So I remember we drove up to JDM Imports in Connecticut, and I just wasn't satisfied. Not anything to do with them, but it was just more like I didn't get to sit in a truck. I didn't get to experience it. So I am a visual learner, and I like to touch things to learn and see. And so I was like, all right, let's look for another one. And then I stumbled upon Ross Motors because somebody is like, oh, that one will probably have inventory where you can actually sit and do things. So I was like, cool, let's do it. So when we drove, it was still cold. I remember that, but I think it was sometime in February, maybe March of 23, I want to say. And we drove from like one side of Connecticut to the other side of Connecticut, and I made a deal happen. I overpaid for my truck in retrospect. Maybe not. It's still kind of in the back of my mind whether or not I actually did, but got a truck and then started experiencing, and I said, okay, this is pretty cool. I don't mind this at all. But I still want to experience importing it. So bought one truck off Be Forward, or a van off Be Forward, and then everything was pretty much history from there. So I'm a father of 3 children. Well, 4 children. One that you can't even see right now because she's laying on the couch. But Lola, shout out to Lola. She was our firstborn, I guess you could say. She's our fur animal, like our child, our fur child is what we call her. She really was the one that segued us into being able to have kids. So it goes Lola, then Grover, which is our 7-year-old, August, which is our 5-year-old, and then Casper, which is our 1-year-old now, which is crazy to think. There'll probably be a podcast about this, but I knew what I wanted in life and I wanted to get started on that quicker. And so we had kids when I was 25 and I think Megan was 23, if I'm not mistaken. And some people would think like crazy, but here we are, 3. We had one, I only wanted one. And then second one was like, okay, it's happening. And then the third one was like, how is this even possible? Again, there'll be a whole podcast about that. And then I'm married to my awesome wife, Megan, who I met, and that should be a story within itself. But I think that's the next episode will be about Megan and kind of our whole ordeal, because it's kind of a funny one. It's a funny story that I think some people will like and enjoy. But yeah, so husband, father, and then, yeah, that's pretty much it. So I feel like sometimes I have a lot of things that I want to talk about, and sometimes I can be inspirational, but it's more like life experiences, I guess you could say. So kind of interesting. I'm also one for streamlining everything. So if you don't know, on YouTube, so when I wanted to become a YouTuber, I just thought it was super complicated. People would get all these like fancy cameras, fancy gear, and I was like, man, that's just not me. I don't want to invest like thousands of dollars on all this fancy equipment so that I can produce a video. So that's what really held me back from being able to do it. And then I met somebody and they were very simple doing it with, just like a GoPro and their phone. And I was like, hey, maybe I could do this. And there was a great example and I got pushed and I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. And really what started off my YouTube career, I guess you could say, because it's kind of crazy to think that I'm calling it a career to begin with, but I'm a content creator, I guess now, was I was trying to make videos for the cars that I was trying to sell. And I was just posting them up on YouTube because you needed to be able to post a cold start video for the cars to be able to post it up on Cars and Bids. And so I did that. And then somebody offered me to help them sell their vehicle. And I was like, okay. And then I did one of that because it was kind of a rare vehicle, this food truck. And then the video took off and I was like, wait, this might be a thing. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of streamlined this. So went and found, I'm an Android kind of guy. So if you're an Android kind of guy, shout out to you or girl. If you like Apple, shout out to you as well. I've had an Apple in the past before. I had the iPhone 4 when it came out on Verizon, but I'm segueing, and I'll do this often, and I apologize, but I guess this is part of Mendy Talks. This is like the raw, uncut, like you'll get pretty much anything and everything, where I don't have time for videos to, put it on there. But so I was like, let me find an app where I can just edit, and then I stumbled upon Power Director and started using Power Director, and I've been using Power Director since. I did like the free, so if you go watch a couple of my starter videos, you'll see that on the bottom, I think right or left, I think it says like the watermark Power Director, because I wasn't paying for it at the time, which is kind of funny to think. And so I was like, cool. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go more into this. So I was like, let me just pay the yearly subscription. Or I think I bought the app. I don't know. I don't remember, to be honest. I guess we'll find out after a year. So fast forward to 2024, end of 2024. I guess you could say September's when I kind of stumbled upon it. But, quote me if I'm wrong. You can go on my YouTube and you can really see it. I think the first video was the food truck. And then after that was like a BJ Topo. And then after that, I think was Project Acti. And then I think Project Acti, no, the food truck. The food truck was really what kind of like unraveled me and really gave me, I guess you can say, it opened up this whole new thought that I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. I guess I can do this. Because what I was doing before is I was just filming the cars. I wasn't talking, and I was just like, look, this is it, and this is the other. But for this food truck, if you have a second, go watch it. But this food truck's pretty cool. It telescopes up. As far as I'm aware, I think it's for sale. I'm not really quite sure anymore. podcast for another day as well. But it telescopes up, and it's a K truck, and it's super, super cool. Just picture it, because if you're listening to this on a podcast, then let me depict it to you. So let me get into my depiction voice. And if you're watching it, then good for you. But basically, you have a Mitsubishi mini cab, which is what it's called. And just picture like one of the K trucks or mini trucks or micro trucks, whatever you want to call it. So super, super tiny. It's got like a flat nose on the front. And then on the back, it's still got the bed. But it's just a box that fits the perfect height of the cab and then the perfect sides and back of it. And you open this. I'm trying to close my eyes and depict this to you. So if you're looking on the back, if you're facing forward, on the right side of it, which is where you would drive these vehicles that are from Japan, on the back of it, about halfway up the side of the truck, the door swings open. And then right below it, there's a crank, and there's this big wheel. Or it used to be just like a lever almost, but somebody turned it into a big wheel so that you can just basically crank it up. So you go, and then it would crank the whole roof up and essentially exposing a work area. So when you walk in, the first thing that's to your right are the sinks, and then straight ahead is basically a countertop, and then you make a quick left. There's not very much room. I think 2 people would be a stretch. But to the left, there's another workbench, and they're all kind of on the same level. And below it, there's a fridge and a freezer or a fridge, whatever you wanted to make it. And above that is a range, or not a range, but a hood with a vent to vent it out. And it was really cool. So me explaining it to you so that you can kind of understand this as you're listening to this, I needed to be able to show this, and I needed to be able to crank it. And so accidentally, I put myself behind the camera, and accidentally I had to start talking, and I had to start showing these things so that people could really understand what it is that, this truck was about. And so inadvertently what happened was I started to break free, and I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can start a YouTube journey and go from there. And so my goal was to get monetized. And if you don't know what monetization is, basically you make money off the ads that are played on your videos. And so basically what happens is you need to have 1,000 subscribers, and you need to have 4,000 watch hours, which in retrospect doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. So most of the time you can get to the 1,000 subscribers, but by the time you get to the 1,000, you're already pretty close to the 4,000 watch hours, which is pretty nuts. So when I really went full force, I guess you could say it was November. By December, I was almost there. And it was kind of cool because I entered 2025. And in January, I finally got monetized. So January 2025, this year basically, was when I was able to get monetized on YouTube. And so that's been pretty cool. So I think it was like come up of 6 months, and my first month on YouTube, I made, I think it was like $31. I can pull it up if I really wanted to, but it was interesting. It was interesting to say, oh, wow, I can take something and make something out of it. And in retrospect, now, if you really ask me, or if you really think about it, or if you ask any other YouTuber out there, YouTube doesn't pay enough for what the amount of work, hours, sweat equity that you're putting into these videos. And there's bigger YouTubers that talk about it. I think a great example is Whistling Diesel. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He's kind of this crazy guy who started with a pickup truck and started basically like going up, and now this is massive monster truck. And he does it more for the haters, because that's really what he has. But it's crazy. But he talks about how he wants to produce great videos, but he doesn't make enough money to justify these great videos. And so often you are like limited to what you can do. And so sometimes I feel that way, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I feel like it depends on how you look at it. I mean, is the glass half empty, or is it half full? And really that's what it comes down to. So the real story behind me is basically I feel like I've always worked for somebody, and they've never been able to unleash the potential that is inside of me. For my father, he was an entrepreneur from heart, and so I think I got that from him. And so shout out to my dad, who has died, and there'll be a separate podcast about that as well, an episode kind of depicting my life and all that. But my dad was really the person that inspired me to really move forward and really put faith on myself. So I didn't go to college. I should say I graduated high school. I went to Greenwich High. So if you've been to Greenwich High, if you're listening to this, shout out to you. Graduated 2010, so class of 2010. And then just how life was kind of dealt. I'm also LDS or Mormon, as most people know me, aka Christian. And so going to church, I had the opportunity to serve a mission. And again, there's a separate podcast for that as well, a whole episode about that. But when I turned 18 or 19, I had the opportunity to go serve a mission. I only went out for 6 months. Normally they go out for 2 years, but there's a whole story behind that. So I came home and I wanted to go to BYU, Idaho, and I didn't have the chance to go. I kind of got blacklisted, and that's a really juicy one. So if you really want to hear that episode, let me know, and I will definitely air that episode at some point. But yeah, so I didn't get to BYU, Idaho, which was the goal. That's like the Mormon thing to do, is you either go to BYU or BYU I do is what it's called, because it's BYU, Idaho. So BYU is in Utah. It's in Provo, and that's like I guess you could say the Ivy League school of Mormons. And so people want to do anything and everything to get in there. I know my grades would have never compiled to be able to get into BYU, but I definitely could have gotten into BYU, Idaho. So I didn't make it. And so I kind of felt back, and I felt kind of like a failure, because normally what you do is you serve a mission and you get out of your mission and you go straight to BYU or BYU, Idaho, and then you find your forever person, or your wife, and you get married, and then you live happily ever after. So it didn't work out that way. I ended up going to NCC here in Norwalk. So it's Norwalk Community College in Connecticut. And let me tell you, that was just so bad. It was crazy. And I think because I went to community college, it hindered my opportunity to want to go to school. In retrospect, if I can go back in time and think about if I ended up in BYU, Idaho, I think life would have been a little bit different. I don't think by much, because I'm kind of a crazy person, and you'll kind of see that. I'm an open book, so if you have any questions, I don't mind answering them. And I think that it will make for some good episodes. But I didn't want to go to school. After I went to college, or like NCC community college, I was like, this place sucks. I remember going to, it was English class, I want to say. And I had this one guy, cool guy. I still occasionally bump into him, but I remember him wanting my notes and then copying this. And I sucked at what I was doing. I was not good at English, even though I was good at English in high school. But I was like, this guy's crazy, it's nuts. And I was like, yo, how'd you get in? He's like, oh, no, I'm just on aid, on what's it called? I don't even know what they call it, but basically where the government pays for you to go to school. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. And backstory, I'm an immigrant. So I immigrated here when I was 7 years old. I was born in Venezuela. And people make fun of me the way I say it, Venezuela. My friends go, Venezuela. Anyways, so I came here when I was 7, and I didn't become a U.S. citizen until after I married Megan. And now I'm a U.S. citizen. As of 2021, I became a U.S. citizen, so I got a U.S. passport, which is cool. And then, so for basically from 7 years old up until I was 2020, I was MIA, and not MIA, but I was an illegal. And then shout out to Obama, even though despite the fact that some people don't like him, but he did what they called the Act of the Dream Act. The Dream Act didn't get passed, but DACA did, which gave me an opportunity to get a work permit and start all this. And that's right around the time that I was starting to want to go to school. And then I worked for this company called Lovesac, and they gave me this opportunity to be part of their logistics team. What happened was I was pushing. I got out of high school and I started working for this company, and I was pushing that I wanted to make something of myself. And finally I was able to make something of myself. And so it was either pick between school or pick between full-time. And after watching this guy get his schooling paid for, and he didn't care at all, I was like, there's no way. I remember my mom's like, oh, I'll pay for it for you. And I was like, no. I don't agree with parents paying for your college. Bite me on that. But I think you get more out of it if you're the one paying for it. And if you're the one that's not slaving yourself, but doing the hard work to make it happen. I feel like there's some value in that. And so my mom paid for it, and I remember like the struggles of my mom being put through that, and I was like, I can't have my mom do this. And the thing that really set me off was I tried really hard in this English class, and I remember I took the final and he gave me a D. And I remember I was going to sign up again for that same class, and it was going to be $1,200. And I was like, I could buy a car for $1,200 and flip it and make money. So my logic might be off, but I said, I don't want to pay somebody to fail me. And so ultimately what happened was I was like, I'm going to pick work over school. And so here I am. I don't work for Lovesac anymore. Again, another episode to come on that, because I think it's a great episode. I started at Lovesac after they filed for bankruptcy and they came out here and they were back on their come up. I was working for them. Church was the thing that led me to that and gave me the opportunity for that, because Sean Nelson and Dave Underwood are Mormon as well. And so I knew them and they knew me, and it was kind of like it all synced. But again, an episode for that. I think it's really cool. So didn't go to school, decided it wasn't for me. So I have like a semester under my belt, and I was like, I think school is a total scam. And that's not for everybody, but it just happened to be for me. So I was like, okay, cool. No, I'm done with this. So started working full time, and then I can probably say that I've had more jobs than the most average person. And I know some people are like, why are you proud of that? Well, because I put a lot of different jobs under my belt. Like I worked for a scuba shop. I've worked for like a dog care place. It's called Camp Bow Wow. I've mowed lawns. I've painted. I've done so many things that it's like, to list them off, it's crazy. I worked for Chipotle, to think, out of all places, Chipotle. What else? I don't know. So where I was trying to get at is being an illegal in this country, having to kind of figure things out on your own really gives you perspective on a lot of different things. And so I basically was dealt a hand, and I could either be super depressed about it or I can make something of myself. And I decided, let me make something of myself. And there's a ton of people that were really inspirational for me. And I said, you know what? There's no time to waste, because literally I drove without a license for the longest time. And it was the thing that was kind of crazy. Back in the day, being an immigrant is different than being an immigrant nowadays. And it's kind of starting, it feels like it's kind of starting to go back to how the way it used to be. But basically, you didn't get everything. Nothing was handed to you. You had to work for everything. And I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody here. If you're an immigrant now, I feel for you, the pain. I've been there, where every day you have to wake up and think, am I going to get deported? And so I think that mentally, that doesn't screw you up. I mean, it does screw you up to some extent. Let's be honest. But I think that it wires you, or helps you rewire, because in life it's all about how you look at it. Again, is the glass half empty or half full? And so if you wanted to be that immigrant that said it's half empty, then you weren't going to make it places. If you wanted to be the immigrant where it was half full, you were going to go somewhere. And I decided I wanted to go somewhere. So the things that other people didn't do, I did. And the things that people thought I was crazy for, I didn't care. I was like, let's just go for it. And so I have friends that, it was interesting, they never got their license until after many years, but I was driving them around without a license, and I had my own car, and it was legit. It was insured, it was registered and everything. But I still remember to this day, like, I was the one spearheading my friends. Shout out to Kevin, shout out to Leo. But it was interesting to think that. So again, that's kind of the background of Mendy Imports, like why I am the person I am. And also, my dad wasn't in the picture physically. He was always in the picture, like virtually, I guess you could say. It's kind of crazy to think that way. But again, it's an episode for another day. And then shout out to my mom, because my mom an amazing. She's a rock in my life. She's total, excuse my language, pain in the ass sometimes, and I set my boundaries with her just like everybody else probably does with their mother. But I love her to death. If it wasn't for her providing when no one else was there to provide, I wouldn't be here to this day. And if it wasn't for her, not blowing smoke up my ass, but actually really encouraging me to do the things that I do, I probably wouldn't be here, even though I can tell you that I'm stubborn. So my mom probably had to fight with me more. So I am the baby of 4. I have an older brother. I have 2 older sisters who are the middle. So it goes Jay, Susie, Veronica, and then me. And then obviously my mom and my dad. So I'm the baby of the family. So I guess you could say that I was the one that was pampered. But coincidentally enough, Megan's also the baby of the family. But yeah, so I know this episode's probably pretty long. I think you'll notice that if you want to tune into this, my episodes will be long. And I'm not afraid to say that. I'm not afraid to say that I may go, over, and you'll get something out of these podcasts. I hope. That's the hopes. Is that I have a life journey to share. I'm 33 years old, and I have a life journey that I feel like sometimes people can connect with. And so if you're willing to take the ride, which I promise you, I will deliver. I promise you that I will not disappoint, because I plan on having people on this podcast. And I want it to be an open voice for others. I've had a friend who I grew up with here. He's Mormon, and he went through divorce, and he put it on here, and it's basically same sex. He's attracted to same sex, but being Mormon, his name's Andrew Davis. So I'm going to try and find out what his podcast is called, but basically it's being Mormon, attracted to the same sex, but not doing things. And in retrospect, you're probably listening to this and you're like, wow, that's really bad, but it's a good listen. And so he did his, and I was like, man, I really need to get on this and do a podcast, because I have what my mom says, everybody's mind is a different universe. And you'll probably see that quote throughout a lot of different things, but I have a vast understanding of life in a different way than other people, again, just because of how life was dealt to me. And so if you're wanting inspiration, I can give that to you as well. I can promise you I'll give that to you. If you're wanting a good laugh, I can also give that to you. If you're wanting to learn some wacky, crazy stuff, definitely the podcast for you. So I'll probably wrap it up here, because we're right at the 30-minute mark, but I don't know where this podcast is going to take me. I don't know how many people are going to tune in. I don't know that it'll go anywhere after episode 1, but I will say that my goal is to at least get to 10 episodes. 10 episodes. I'm putting this on voice and behind the camera, because if you don't know, I am recording this. By the simplicity of things, I like to make things simple. I like to streamline it. That's really my passion in life, is how to make things as simple as possible and streamline it. Our phrase, or our thing for the bus was called small and simple bus, because small and simple things, greater things are come to pass. It's a scripture. Look it up. And so I like to keep it simple. So if you go look on my YouTube, it's going to say KISS, keep it stupid simple. And that's really what it is. So I'm recording, and hopefully by the time I post this video, because it's going to go up on YouTube, it's going to be under the channel Mendy Talks. So it's a separate channel. And let's see how quickly we can get this monetized. So I'm definitely going to be pushing it on my other channel and on my socials. So if you're joining in from those, thank you so much. I appreciate it. If you're watching the videos, if you're listening on a podcast, I think I'm doing it through Spotify. So thank you for listening. Again, if you want something specific, if you want to be on the podcast, please reach out. I would love to get as many people, as many voices that need to be heard that sometimes aren't heard. If you're crazy, I want to hear you. I want to experience it. Well, most people don't realize, for me, it's what I do as Mendy Imports is sometimes I'm not as profitable financially, but I'm profitable in a way where I get to experience new people. I get to experience new things, and I meet them. And so if you've met me, hopefully you can gather that. That's the thing, is like what you see behind the camera or my voice behind this podcast is what is going to be through and through. Like I want to set the record straight. This is me. I am crazy. I'm wicked weird to think I'm in my apartment right now, making this. And by the way, I think I'll try and get more creative and more funky. This microphone is part of this DJI Osmo 3. And so as you can tell, it's on a cup, and I don't know if it's going to be super bad and echoey. I guess I'm going to find out if I have to re-record this episode, but I was thinking about using a plant, which in retrospect, maybe that'll be the next thing I use, but in the video it covered most of my face. But anyways, so if you made it this far, we're at the 30-minute mark. I appreciate you. If you want to hear more, stay tuned for more. And we're gonna make this happen. 10 episodes deep is what I want to be, and then from there make the decision. I would love to get monetized, so if you can, I don't know how it works on podcasts, but subscribe, share it, like it, do whatever it needs to do so we can push this even further. If you're a friend or family, thank you for the support. Either way, I think this brings me joy. I'll tell you this much. As weird as it is, it brings me joy to be able to talk, because most people that know me will know that I love to talk. And whenever we go to a new customer's house or to drop off a vehicle and Megan comes along with the boys, it's very interesting because she's like, so how long are you going to be? And I say, oh, I'm just going to turn and burn. Like, we got to make it home. So she's like, so an hour? And I was like, no, don't do me like that. But yes, the reality is I like to talk. So I think this is a way that I can do it. So it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. But yeah, we're already the 30-minute mark. ChatGPT, shout out to you, because this is what I use to be able to kind of do everything. So really quickly, you saw my intro, my real story, what people don't see, and why you're still doing this, and call to action. So my call to actions, if you ever struggled chasing your dreams, I see you as well. Because again, I don't think that everybody gets dealt their cards in a way that are, I guess you can say, conducive to them or to their success, but it's the way that you are willing to go out there and choose to be either half full or half empty. And yeah, so if I can leave you with any words of inspiration is, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about doing something and you haven't done it, this is your moment. I'm telling you to go do this right now, because I'm crazy enough where I put my life on the line. I had a full-time job as a mechanic, and I pretty much, you could say, hated it. I think I hated working for people, and that's ultimately why I decided I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore, and I left. I left the workforce to become what I've become now, which is Mendy Imports. And if I were asked, hey, would you do this? I would do this 100 times over. I may not be the richest. I may be in debt. I may have lost friends. I may have gained friends. I may have so many things that I have yet to see. But I'm happy. I'm happy because I'm with my family. I'm doing what I want to do. And if that means that some people see it miserably, that's okay. I think everybody's entitled to see what it is. So my call to action to you is, if you are thinking about doing something and it stopped you because of your own thoughts and maybe fears, have no fear. If I can do it, you can do it. And so make it happen. As a catchphrase that I've been trying to use for my channel more, and I used it while I was in Japan a whole lot, you got to lock in. It's time to lock in and make it happen. So I'll leave you with that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, whatever it is, however it is that you're getting this. Like, subscribe, share, ring the notification bell, do whatever it is that we need to do to stay connected. Until next time.